All right, unmuted myself. We'll unmute you in a second. It's not giving me the option to unmute your mic for some reason. So you might need to do that. Welcome to the Stochastic MLB Strategy Show. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Adam Ship My Money Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by SoRare MLB. Just getting into the SoRare stuff. Of course, if you've followed me at all, you know that I've been playing a lot of SoRare NBA, loving doing SoRare NBA. So excited to jump into the SoRare MLB season as well. Getting into it, starting to buy new cards today. Excited to do so. While you're coming in, please do give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. And of course, if you're not already part of the Stochastic Hall of Fame, don't forget to sign up for it by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. Download the Stochastic avatar from stochastic.com/avatar, place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, and tweet the win to at Stochastic HOF account if you have Twitter, or if you don't have Twitter, you can email us with your screenshot. You'll win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. It's a great way to get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. So make sure you change your avatar at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at us. Adam, we've got a nice 12-game slate here tonight. How did yesterday go for you?
Went pretty well. Made money on FanDuel, lost a little bit on DraftKings, made more on FanDuel than I lost on DraftKings. So can't complain.
Was that all cash games, or do you play some tournaments too?
All cash games. Is that
just your life going forward? Are you just a cash guy now, or do you think you're going to be mixing it up?
I'll probably mix it up. I'm never good about sticking to cash, but I was just in a tournament downswing. I think I talked about it with Josh yesterday. Like, I was still, and it's been going on for a while, like still playing well, still getting, my share of top 1% finishes, just not getting first. And it was just kind of got to the point where I was like, all right, well, I need to stop the bleeding here. I'm going to turn things around, play some cash. It's nice. I've done it before. Like, I switch it up a lot during downswings. Like, mentally, it helps a lot because when you're playing tournaments, you're just losing constantly. Like, no matter how good you are, you're losing constantly.
Yep.
And it just kind of gets draining. And then I'll enjoy cash for a while, or I'll switch to like 3 max tournaments for a while. Just stuff where like you're having success more often. You're obviously not getting those 100K days that are really fun, but just to switch it up and be like, okay, cool. Like, I won a couple days in a row. This feels good.
Yeah, no, I've actually done the exact same thing. Like, when I was like on a heater, of course, I'm playing all the, like, at one point I wouldn't play a contest if the top prize was less than like 40,000. Now I'm at the point that I'm in the 20 max, like $4 entry, 20 max, where the top prize is like $5,000 some days. Right. I'm like, yeah, when you're down bad, you got to switch things up a little bit. So I was on a little bit of a pretty bad losing streak. So I was like, you know what? This is bad for my mental health. And I think I've come to the conclusion that maybe I don't play as well when I'm live on shows too. So it's like, it's harder to be good at DFS when you're trying to talk about your process. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I really like this guy. And then I'll look later, like, I have 0% of this player that I was touting. It's like, I think
there's a reason that part of my deal ever since I started doing content was that I don't do live before locks.
Well, yeah, for NBA in particular, it's like, that's it's just a mess. But I think it's smart to just switch up what you're doing when you are having a losing streak. And I've thought about going the cash route too. Like, it's not something that I've really ever gotten into a lot, but I think that it's, if you just want to like build up a bankroll, like if you want to just win more consistently, you're still not winning every day with cash, but like you're going to win a lot more. So
yeah,
I've
and that's
thought
kind of the
about
thing
doing
for me
same.
too, is like I do have, shit that I need to pay for. And so it's kind of
Right.
like, yeah, I can stop the bleeding a little bit, actually have money that I can, plan on having. Because that's always been like the hardest thing for me as a tournament player, is like I know over the course of a year or 2 years I'm gonna make good money. But during the it's so hard to like plan monthly where it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
like I'm gonna make this much this month, because yeah, you might lose like 20-30 grand, and that's obviously not what you're like planning for. So yeah, I switched it up just for multiple reasons, but I'm sure I'll be back to tournaments sooner than later.
Yeah, and I also like, part of it for me is like, well, at this point, I know that I've had the most success at NFL, which also has the biggest prize pool. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll wait till then. I did, MLB can be a lot of fun when you're 150 maxing too, but it can also be brutal if things don't go your way. So maybe at some point during the MLB season, I'll try it out again. But I've really
Yeah,
I've been really enjoying the 20 max.
yeah. I was playing 3 max NBA for a while. Did really well going into the All-Star break, and then got my ass kicked coming out of it. But yeah, it's nice. Like, as far as the cash goes too, like I'm much more likely to switch to playing it a while for like MLB or NFL than NBA, because NBA is just everybody's playing the same lineup. It has been nice so far. Even, like obviously cash games are going to be softer at the beginning of a season because you have more casual people playing than you will later in the year. But so far, even like with a lot of the regs, I've had similar lineups and occasionally will dupe, but it's not as bad as it was in like Showdown NFL this year or NBA, where it's just like, okay, either I need to play like my third best lineup, or I am just chopping with like 80% of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's tough. Adam, if you were worried that maybe I flawlessly executed this producer thing for the first time, I apparently started the show with us flipped. You were on the left, I was on the right. Everybody was super confused. Like, is Adam hosting? What's going on? But I switched us back. Now I am on the left. One of these days, I'm going to flawlessly execute the start of one of these shows that I'm producing. Yeah, guys, if you weren't aware, I'm now producing. When it's just me and Adam, it's me producing these shows, and I don't have much experience with producing. Somebody asked yesterday, why don't we have the like the sidebar with like every game on it? It'd be great if we could do that. Maybe someday I'll be trained in for that. But the reason is that I'm producing and just using a lesser program here, so don't have.
Yeah, so I don't even know how to do that. Well, not that I know how to do it in Zoom either, but I don't know how to do it in here.
Yeah, I absolutely don't know how to do it. So maybe I'll be trained in at some point. But I think, well, when it's me and Adam, you're probably just not going to get that. Adam, have you looked at this slate much? Do you have any overarching thoughts here?
Nothing really overarching. I crunched a bunch of lineups for DraftKings so I can talk about, where I'd be if the slate started 7 hours earlier than it does. But yeah, no real overarching thoughts. I did notice, sort of just looking at like where my exposures would be, that pitching doesn't seem great. I have a decent amount of exposure going to pitchers whose names I don't really like. So I think that kind of just makes sense. You see it early on in the year because you haven't had a lot of injuries yet. A lot of teams are on just kind of normal 5-day schedules. So you get a lot of, the aces all pitching on the same day, and then the number 5 guys all pitching on the same day. So I do think we're seeing, some of that today. Not to say there's no good pitchers, but you don't have a Spencer Strider on this slate. You don't have a Kevin Gossman from the other day. You don't have Lodolo from yesterday. The highest projected ownership on a pitcher for DraftKings right now is Luis Garcia at 33%, Nestor Cortez at 29%. So that's a bit lower than we were seeing on, Lodolo yesterday, and certainly a lot lower than we were seeing on Strider 2 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the top 2 odds, like in the top pitchers tool, the highest we have on the entire slate is Senga with an 18.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Is just spread out both ownership wise and just in our tools as far as like odds of success here. So feels like maybe a flatter day at pitcher, but I guess we'll talk about that as we go game by game. Larry says Jordan should be showing people to host that stuff. Yeah, I mean, Jordan is extremely busy right now, and that's part of the reason that I'm producing the show, is that we have so many shows that Jordan is producing right now. And Jordan did show me like how to do this, but we're actually we're in a different program than Jordan uses when he's producing, so I don't actually know if it's possible in this program. Anyway, we will jump in game by game here, Adam, and we will start with the Yankees versus the Twins. Twins just absolutely shellacked the Yankees last night. It was beautiful. I don't know if you saw, there was some chatter about the fact that the Twins have won like 3 times in the past 60 years in Yankee Stadium. I forget what it was exactly in chat. That's what it feels like, 3 times in the past 60 years. People were concerned about playing the Twins when they always lose in Yankee Stadium for the entire history of the organization, and they just absolutely destroyed the Yankees. It was a beautiful thing. But back to it. Back in Yankee Stadium, Adam, we have with the Twins on a roll. You just going to run back with the Twins? They're clearly hot right now.
Yeah, clearly hot right now. I mean, it is, again, it's 80 degrees in Yankee Stadium, so it's a bit cooler than yesterday, but it's still warm. Much different matchup, though. Yesterday, you had Brito, who we talked about, just, had did a good job his first start out, missing bats, but really hadn't shown that in the minor leagues and didn't project to be that guy in the majors, and did not miss bats yesterday. Now you have Nestor Cortes, who is clearly a better pitcher than Brito is at this point. Not to say that he's, that he's untouchable. He has allowed a little bit of power this year, 208 expected ISO to righties. But going back to last year, very, very good at limiting power. 122 expected ISO to righties with a 24.5% strikeout percentage. Sub 100 expected ISO to lefties with a 35% strikeout percentage. There is still upside in this lineup, particularly with Buxton and Correa at the top. You have a cheap Ryan Jeffers at catcher, but much less appealing spot, I think, than it was yesterday.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll jump back. I had to get my joke in about the Twins shellacking the Yankees, but we'll go back to the usual structure of starting with the pitchers. So do you have interest in Nestor Cortes? I don't think we have a named starter for the Twins yet.
I think it's supposed to be Varland, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So tell me about your level of interest in either of these pitchers in this game.
Yeah, so I mean, Cortes, I think, is one of the best pitchers on the slate in terms of projection. He is projected to go a bit over-owned. We have 29% projected ownership on DraftKings, 15% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. If the slate started right now, I'd be right around that 15% mark, which I am perfectly fine with. Slates like this, I've talked before about not typically that I don't mind playing chalk pitching. I'm a lot more likely to get away from chalk hitting just because pitchers are a little bit more projectable, and also because they're taking up one spot in your lineup as opposed to a popular stack taking up half of the spots in your lineup. But here, there's just so many pitchers that are pretty comparable that I do expect to sort of just be under the field on the most popular guys and over the field on some more lower owned guys who, you don't feel great about, but I don't feel great about the top end guys either. So Nestor Cortes, I think, clearly a good play. I'd be getting under the field right now, but he is one of the best pitchers on the slate.
And then Varland, is he in the player pool?
I think so. So he's not in Fantasy Cruncher right now. So
okay,
technically, if the slate started right now, I would have none because I couldn't put him in. But he is actually a solid pitching prospect. It is clearly a tough matchup here. Limited time in the majors last year, made 5 starts, went 26 innings, only struck out 19.8% of hitters, but 21 innings at AAA last year, struck out 32%. At AA, where he spent most of his time last year, he struck out 26%. The bat projects him for a 24.9% strikeout percentage in the majors. So there is upside for him. It's just also a very difficult spot and very risky spot going in the Yankee Stadium. It looks like he is 7,100 on DraftKings. So, I mean, at that price, if you get to a little bit of him in tournaments, I think that's fine, but I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable with it.
There used to be a way in Fantasy Cruncher to like toggle off of like the default is only show starting pitchers, and you could toggle that off and look at other pitchers. I feel like I'm missing that now. It's got to be in there somewhere. I would be surprised if they removed it, but yeah, currently I don't see a way to add Varland here. But yeah, seems like hopefully I'm sure they'll add him later on in the day and we'll be fixed there. But currently not seeing a way.
But yeah, okay. I remember what you're talking about, and I do not remember how to do it.
It used to be so it was like right at the top, super easy to do. I'm sure it's in there. Anyway, we'll figure it out hopefully before lock. All right, how about the bats? I mean, you said obviously it's a tough matchup against Cortes. Varland, a solid prospect.
I found it.
Oh, you found it. Okay, where is
it? Advanced options. Wait, I already forgot where it was. No, you go to columns under advanced options, and then you click additional options, and there's a toggle for show all pitchers, including non-starters.
All right, good to know. Thank you. All right. So what about the bats here? I mean, it's as you said, it's good hitting weather here in Yankee Stadium. Obviously a tougher spot for the Twins going up against Nestor Cortes. How much interest, if any, do you have in the Yankees or the Twins? And do you think you'll be playing them as one-offs or fully stacking them?
Yeah, I mean, modest interest in the Yankees. Right now I'm pulling 3 to 7% ownership on most of their hitters. Looking at the top stacks tool, we have them pulling around 4.5% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack. So looks like I'm pretty much in line with the field on, most of them, at least from a stacking standpoint. Minnesota, we have coming in as one of the lowest probability stacks, 2% projected ownership, 2% chance of being the top stack. Tough matchup against Cortes. I'm not really getting to much Minnesota at all. Buxton would be leading the way for me at 6%, not really getting to anything else.
Yeah, kind of hard to want to go there a ton against Nestor Cortez because we have fairly bad pitching on this slate. So then, you don't really need to play the teams that are going up against pretty good pitchers. They do look pretty good in the top stacks duel. 2% projected ownership on the Twins, 2.5% chance to be in the top stack, and 7.3% chance to be in the top value stack currently. So there are reasons to play the Twins, but obviously some likelier lineups throughout. And did you say what's your level of interest in the Yankees? Think you're going to be playing any stacking the Yankees at all, or playing one-offs there?
Yeah, it looks like I'm pretty much just around the field on them. Most of that team is showing up like 4 to 7% of the time for me. Nobody's standing out as somebody I'm getting tons of right now. As far as the field goes, Aaron Judge leading the way at 14%. Rizzo's next at 6%. So pretty much in line with the field, getting less than that 14% number on Judge. But clearly, if you're getting more Aaron Judge, that is absolutely fine. But yeah, I'm pretty much just in that like 4 to 7% ballpark on everybody.
Okay. So I loved Josh's idea yesterday of having you rank the 4 sides of the game, the 2 pitchers and the 2 offenses. But on 12 games, I feel like it's a lot to ask of you. It's got to be a little bit tough on you. Is it hard to do the rankings? Because that's clearly not the way you think about DFS. Is it hard?
No, it was actually easier than I thought it would be. Today, I can definitely do it because I crunched already. So to some extent, I can do it. If I answer based off of my exposures, obviously that's factoring in projected ownership too.
Sure.
But yeah, it's easy enough.
All right. Well, then let's do it. Rank the 4 sides of the team, the 2 pitchers and the 2 offenses. Who's your favorite down to your least favorite?
Cortez, Yankees, Varland, Twins.
Yeah, hurts me to hear it, but I think I'm probably on the same page there. All right. You ready to move on to the next game?
Yep.
All right. Next game, we have the Nationals versus the Guardians. Cal Quantrill on the mound versus Trevor Williams. Tell me about your level of interest in these pitchers. Think you're going to be getting to any Quantrill or Williams?
Yeah, not particularly interested in either pitcher. Quantrill showing up in less than 1% of the lineups I built. Williams showing up in 3%. It's just not great strikeout matchups, not great strikeout pitchers. The pitcher that I would prefer to go to would be Williams because he has 5,600. But you also have Cleveland's lineup is better than the Nats lineup as well. Steven Kwan, basically impossible to strike out. Jose Ramirez, very difficult to strike out. Drives down the total strikeout upside there. So if you need to get to Williams as a value SP2 for some reason, go for it. He's getting 1% ownership with a 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I think Quantrill's more difficult to get to because he comes in at 8,700. He's not getting any ownership, about a 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So similar top 2 pitcher percentages to guys like Louis Varland and Trevor Williams, who are all pulling no ownership, but are just a lot less expensive. It's tough to want to get to an $8,700 pitcher that, since the start of last season, has struck out. I don't know because I don't have the right number in front of me. I think it's like 18% going off memory.
Yeah, and it's 8,700.
16.6% strikeout percentage since last year.
Yeah, it's tough to want to get there. I don't know, like why is he 8,700?
I don't know. He was priced up a lot last year too, randomly, and it kind of seemed like whenever he was priced up, he would just go out there and like have a ridiculously efficient, 7-inning, like 7 strikeout game. But obviously not counting on that here.
All right, so we're locking in Quantrill for 7 innings, 7 strikeouts. Offenses on the other side of the game. Obviously, Cleveland looks pretty good with a 5.5 implied team total, we'll call it, and then Nationals don't look quite as good with a 4.5 implied team total. What's your level of interest in these stacks or one-offs from this game?
Yeah, so as far as targeting Trevor Williams goes, he does have some issues with left-handed power. He's really, really good against right-handed hitters. Since the start of last year, Williams has struck out 30.6% of righties. He's allowed a 135 expected ISO, 260 expected WOBA. If he could do that against everybody, like this guy would be, like a $9,500 pitcher. The problem is over that same span, he has struck out 9.5% of left-handed hitters while allowing a 228 expected ISO and a 365 expected WOBA. And there are certainly left-handed bats in this lineup that can do damage. Jose Ramirez, the one that clearly stands out. But Steven Kwan leading off is going to look good. Naylor looks good. Jimenez looks good. You can go to Josh Bell. You can only roster him and Naylor. You can only roster one of him or Naylor on DraftKings because they're both first base only, but either of them have power. Will Brennan's got some power. So there's a lot of lefty bats in this Cleveland lineup that I like in this matchup against Williams. From a stack standpoint, we have them with the highest top stack percentage at 8%, 11% projected ownership. So the ownership's not ideal, but it does set up as a good spot for their left-handed power bats. Because of the ownership in large field tournaments, I wouldn't be getting to much Cleveland. But again, that's a different conversation where that's just a like if I found a way to get to more Cleveland, I'm obviously happy with it. I really like the spot for the Guardians.
Do you think Jose Ramirez makes it into cash lineups? I mean, that sounds like an obvious Ramirez spot, but maybe I'm not.
He's certainly on the short list. I haven't built anything in terms of cash, but I would not be surprised at all if he is in them because he's clearly one of the top third base options, if not the best top third base option.
Right. Okay. And did you say, do you have any interest in the Nats?
I'm getting like 2 to 4% there. They're a team where like they shouldn't get much ownership. We have them at 4% ownership because they are cheap. 2.5% chance of being the top stack. So I'm pretty much in line with the field on ownership there. Quantrill is not a pitcher I love targeting. Like Trevor Williams, I can point out very specific splits where he gets lit up. Cal Quantrill has weird strikeout splits, only striking out 12% of righties compared to 21.5% of lefties, but he doesn't give up a ton of power to either side. He's better at, limiting damage. So I think the Guardians are the easier team to talk about in terms of like actually liking their spot.
Yep. SMP says, as stupid as it sounds, Quantrill gets a lot of wins, so maybe getting those 4 extra points, weirdly consistent amount helps raise his price. I mean, yeah, if you're pitching deep into games on a team that is pretty good, I guess that, raises but it's not going to raise your projection enough, probably.
No, I mean, I think I agree with what he's saying is that like Quantrill's end score kind of ends up tricking the algorithms. Like he's a better pitcher than he is because he gets like a disproportionate amount of wins.
Okay. Which maybe is a reason not to play him because
right. Yeah. I don't think he was making a case for why you should play him.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that does make sense as far as like why you see his salary just consistently elevated.
Yeah. That is a good point. We had Noah Rosen asking if we can peek at DK MLB tiers for today. If we have time at the end of the show, we can try to do that. I'm guessing you haven't prepped anything for tiers, and I haven't looked at it.
No, but I can do it. I mean, I can do it quick enough if we have time.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to find some time at the end of the show to look at tiers. And then I thought I had another question. Anyway, I'll get back to some questions. Rank the 4 parts of this game for me, the Washington-Cleveland game.
Guardians hitters, Trevor Williams, Quantrill, I guess, Nats hitters. I really don't know how to rank the Nats hitters, Quantrill and Williams. I do know that the Guardians hitters are first.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we're ready to move on to the next game.
Yeah.
All right, so this one, Tampa still undefeated. Now they're in Toronto, still facing Jose Barrios. Do you think they finally lose a game here?
I hope so. Like they need to start losing eventually because the Orioles are going to win the division, and Tampa Bay is not making it easy.
Yeah, that's not hard to keep up with an undefeated team. Drew Rasmussen on the mound for Tampa, so still a fairly good pitcher. Jose Barrios on the mound for Toronto. What's your level of interest in Rasmussen and or Barrios?
Not a ton of interest in either pitcher. Tough spots for both. Obviously, the Rays are doing a lot of damage this year. Barrios' salary is very reasonable at $7,200. Rasmussen's up to $10K, which is pretty tough when you're going up against the Blue Jays. You're not a great strikeout pitcher. 21.5% strikeout percentage since last year. He's a good pitcher overall, but not a great strikeout pitcher. So I think it's tough to really want to get to either one. If the slate started right now, I would have 20% Barrios just because he's cheap. I would have no Rasmussen. Looking at the top pitchers tool, Barrios projected for 10% ownership. So I'd be like 2x that, which is purely a salary play. And also goes back to what I was saying before, where on this slate, you just don't have dominant top end pitching. When you have, Cortez and Garcia as the highest owned pitchers, I'm just typically going to find some of these other pitchers that also aren't very good or that I don't feel great about, but I'm willing to just kind of get a little bit more of them. So I hate the spot for Barrios. The price tag's reasonable. The lack of ownership is nice.
Yeah, 7,200. I mean, that price tag. How low is that going to go for Barrios? I feel like it was 9,000 to start the season or something relatively high.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal matchup for him too. Yeah. Not only because the Rays are good, but he's had major left-handed power issues, and now you're running into Brandon Lau, Wander Franco, Luke Raley in particular. I guess those are the only real power threats from the left side in this lineup, but certainly legitimate power and a park upgrade for those guys as well.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. The price tag here, it's probably actually a fair price tag, but on this slate, certainly playable because we know Barrios does have some upside at the very least. What about, the bats in this game? Obviously, Blue Jays, Rays, 2 of the better stacks in general, 2 of the better lineups in general, but they're both in relatively tough matchups. How do you feel about these teams as either stacks or one-offs?
I'm really surprised that the Rays aren't getting more ownership. And I guess I should say I'm really surprised I'm not getting more Tampa at that ownership. I guess it has to do with the salaries. Wander Franco's 5,900 on DraftKings. Arozarena is up to 6K. The bottom of the order allows you to offset that, but the bottom of the order actually isn't very good at hitting. The guys that you actually want are pretty expensive. Brandon Lau is 4,300, which is a really cheap price tag. So I would assume he's getting 13% ownership. Nobody else on the team is getting more than 2%. So looking at just the top stack percentage versus ownership percentage, I would have expected to get a lot of Tampa. But if you look at the stack score, which is something I talked about a bit yesterday, they're more in the middle of the pack there because they are so expensive, only a 2% chance of being the top value stack. So this is definitely a team where if you find ways to get there, if you find cheap pitching you like, if you can just build a lineup that gets you to Tampa, I think it looks good. For me personally right now, I'm not getting much, but I certainly wouldn't be upset if I were getting more.
Okay. And then how about Toronto on the other side against Drew Rasmussen?
Yeah, I'm not getting much of them either. Barrios is what I have the most of in this game, which I don't like. But Rasmussen's just a good pitcher, good at limiting power, good at keeping the ball in the park. Toronto's clearly one of those teams that you can play any slate that they're low owned because they have so much power. But a 150 expected ISO to righties to Rasmussen since last year, only 108 to lefties as well. Clearly, again, a lot of really good hitters in Toronto's lineup. Good park for hitting as well. But still, they're coming in with about a 2.8% chance of being the top stack, 1.8 stack scores, I think tied for the lowest on the slate with Oakland. So pretty difficult one to get to when you factor in the matchup and the pricing.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing 1.7 stack score for Toronto and Oakland. That is quite low. Not that, to be honest, I don't actually know what our usual stack scores are. That's not one of the columns that I'm usually looking at in the top stack tool. Maybe I'm missing out on an easier way to see how things stack up, but seems low relative to the others. All right. So you said Barrios is the one part of this game you're getting to the most of. Can you rank the four sides here?
Yeah, so I mean, this is one where if I'm just ranking them in terms of like what I think is most likely to win out, it's Tampa 1, Barrios 2, Blue Jays 3, just because Rasmussen's so expensive, and then Rasmussen. In terms of what it looks like I'd be playing right now, it would be Barrios followed by Tampa, Toronto, Rasmussen.
Okay, Tampa, Toronto, Rasmussen. You say?
In orders, I guess, like in order of what I wish I was getting to, it would be Tampa 1, Barrios 2, Blue Jays 3, Rasmussen 4. And again, that's talking a 10K price tag on Rasmussen. If you were 7,500, I'd like him. But in terms of what I'm actually getting right now, it's Barrios 1, Tampa, Toronto about the same, and then Rasmussen last.
Okay, but you've got some time to adjust to get what you want by the time.
Unfortunately, I'm playing cash, so
that's true. So it doesn't actually matter.
I'll probably end up getting Brandon Lau and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, good point. All right, anything else from this game?
That is another great mental part of cash, is you just root for good players and not like
this whole stack
teams on the slate every day.
Right, not rooting for the vomit stacks every day and just like hitting once every 3 months. Yeah,
exactly.
Anything else from this game?
Nope.
Have you did you notice, I believe I saw in a Discord yesterday that Steve extended his winning streak. He won, of course, 100,000, 100,000, and 50,000 3 days in a row, winning big tournaments on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I believe I saw yesterday that he also won a ticket to the Fantasy Baseball World Championship for FanDuel last night. So he just
four in a row.
4 in a row for Steve. Just I mean, that one relative to the other big wins, that one's not worth quite as much. I think it's probably worth like $27,000. I feel like something.
Until he turns into $1 million.
Right, exactly. Good point. Maybe it's FanDuel though, so it's probably like 500,000.
Right,
not really big enough for Steve's.
He might not even show up.
Yeah, exactly. So Steve continuing to absolutely crush everything. And you know what I know about Steve and Steve's process? He helps to make and uses the stochastic tools and projections. Steve, a big part of the projections team here at Stochastic, also has a lot of say in what goes into the tools, and Steve uses those tools. And right now we have a 50% off deal for any sport. This is for new users only, 50% off any sport, platinum, weekly, or monthly. Click the link in the description of this video or use promo code SCORE to take advantage of literally any of our packages here at Stochastic. Does not include Fantasy Cruncher, of course, but you can get all of the access to Top Stacks tool, Top Pitches tool, ownership projections, everything that we have to offer in terms of DFS here. You can get 50% off using promo code SCORE or the link in the description of this video. Maybe you can try to go on a heater like Steve. He makes it look easy. Not all of us can be Steve, but maybe you can put yourself in position at least to be like Steve using that promo code SCORE for 50% off. Again, that is for new users only. All right, Adam, we will move on to the next game. As much as I'd love to talk about Steve the whole show, next up we've got the White Sox at the Orioles. Mike Clevinger on the mound for the White Sox, Tyler Wells for the Orioles. What's your level of interest in those two pitchers?
Not too much. Clevenger's gone 5 and 5 1/3 in his 2 starts this year, so pitch count's not an issue for him. Wasn't sure exactly, what he would look like coming back from injury, but he's thrown 98 and 88 pitches, so that's good to see. Not a great matchup going up against the Orioles. We know this team has plenty of power throughout their lineup. Clevenger's a pitcher that I used to love to roster, but has had some injuries. He's fallen off a bit, so not really getting too much of him. As far as Tyler Wells goes, not getting there either. I don't think. Yeah, getting like 6% Tyler Wells. Looking at the top pitchers tool, neither guy is close to the top. Clevenger, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at no ownership. Tyler Wells is further down, 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at 5% ownership. Wells does have one sort of narrative working for him in that I am sure the Orioles would like him to go very deep into this game. They've been having a lot of trouble with their starters getting deep in the games. Kyle Gibson's the only guy that's been doing it. Cole Irvin is supposed to be an innings eater. He once again didn't get to the 5th inning yesterday. He's actually now at AAA. Tyler Wells, in his most recent appearance, it wasn't a start, but he went 6 innings in his last start. He went 5 innings out of the bullpen in his first appearance of the year in an emergency situation. So he is stretched out through 89 pitches in those 6 innings against the Yankees. If he can limit damage here, I would expect the Orioles to really push the limits with him in terms of how deep he can go. And at 6,300, those added innings potentially do give you some value.
Yeah, I've seen people in chat talking about Wells as a pitcher that they maybe are interested in. How much interest do you have? Do you think you're actually going to get some Wells?
I'd have 6% if the slate started right now. He's projected for 5, so in line with the field.
Okay. And then bats on the other side. I mean, White Sox going up against Tyler Wells. Any interest there, or the Orioles? What's your level of interest in these teams as stacks or one-offs?
Yeah, not super interested in the White Sox, or at least not really getting to them too much. In the top stacks tool, which I apparently lost. I'm not sure where they're ranked because I got signed out of it. But
let me see. I can find it for you. Man,
I got it back.
Okay.
They're middle of the pack. 3% chance to be in the top stack. 3.9 stack score. 6% chance to be in the top value. 3% ownership, right in line with their top stack percentage. I'm basically getting similar exposures. 5% Luis Robert, 3 on Benintendi. Not much of anybody else. I am getting to a lot of Baltimore, though. Cedric Mullins coming in at 15% for me. Rutschman and Santander around 10. Henderson and Mountcastle close to 10. Getting some Mateo, Urias, Hayes. So this is the first team that we've talked about that I am actually getting a decent amount of. They are projected for 8% ownership, 5% chance to be in the top stack. Only a 1% top value percentage. It's kind of surprising. So it makes me a little surprised that I'm getting to them, but I do like the upside that you get from this team. They have plenty of power in their lineup. They have guys that'll steal, particularly Mullins and Mateo, but plenty of other guys that can run occasionally as well. So it's just always a really high upside stack that I like getting to.
You got to embrace your homerism here. Don't make the same mistake that I made yesterday. I didn't play nearly enough of the Twins, especially I didn't play enough Joe Ryan. So I think you just got to jam the O's here and don't.
My last 100K baseball win was the Orioles last year.
Yeah, so I mean, just stick with it. Do you agree with Mike Ray says Mateo is the best 9-hitter in baseball? Do you think that's true?
In terms of actual hitting ability, I can't think of other 9-hitters. In terms of fantasy upside, that's very likely to be true because the guy just steals anytime he gets on base. And he has power. Like he's a flawed hitter, but he has power and he steals bases. So like from a fantasy standpoint, he's definitely got to be near the top.
So you don't think that the Orioles are making a mistake by batting him 9th? You think that he's good for the 9th hole, but then he's a good fantasy producer there?
Yeah, and they typically bat him higher against lefties also.
Okay.
But against righties, they just have – because a lot of their best hitters are left-handed. And so against lefties, a lot of times you'll see like Hayes move up to the top of the order. Mateo moves up to like 7. And then they bat either like Mullins or Gunnar Henderson behind Mateo. But against righties, he has no business sitting anywhere but 9th.
SMP says Clevenger is a screaming regression candidate too. Wasn't good last year. Peripherals and a small sample size this year are awful too. Is that do you think that that's accounted for in projections? Do you think we need to give a boost to the Orioles here with Clevenger? If you think Clevenger, I don't know if you agree with that statement that he's a regression candidate here. How much? I guess you've already expressed that you do have a lot of interest in the Orioles, so I guess I don't have a real question there. What about the White Sox here? You say you're not interested in the White Sox against Wells. I guess we've covered all sides of this game. Can you rank them for me?
Just to follow up on that, like, yeah, I do think
Okay.
Clevenger is actively worse than he used to be.
Yeah.
He dealt with injuries. Like, if you go back to the start of the 2022 season, 16.6% strikeout percentage to righties, 20.7 to lefties, 221 expected ISO to lefties, 153 to righties is fine. But you compare that to like 2020 or 2019. Like, if you look at the 2019 season, so his last full season where he was like good and healthy, the guy struck out 40.8% of righties, 28% of lefties, allowed a 134 expected ISO to lefties, 147 to righties. His average fastball velocity was 96 miles an hour, compared to this year, he's at 94. And, again, just not striking guys out going back to last year. So you've seen a massive drop off in terms of Mike Clevenger's talent.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, one more reason to play already a dangerous lineup. If you're, and maybe that sometimes that's like something that you can factor in because maybe the field won't factor in that he is a regression candidate enough. Like the casual player probably not factoring in that Mike Clevenger is maybe falling off a cliff and that you can maybe target bats against him. So maybe they go a little bit under-owned as well. Do you think that's the case? Do you think maybe less of the field will play bats against Clevenger than they should because he's a name that they recognize from being good a few years back?
Maybe, but I think most people these days are just using some sort of projection
Good
process
point.
that is going to account for it. I mean, like right now, we don't have them projected to go under owned. We just have them being kind of like a little bit over owned, but not by any crazy amount.
Okay.
I wanted to see too, actually, because I was surprised I'm getting to them. Yeah, so this is a teams like this can kind of be misleading in the top stacks tool as well. They're projected to go over owned, but Cedric Mullins is pulling 17% ownership. Rutschman's pulling 13. Henderson's pulling 12. Santander's at 9. Every other hitter is 6 or below. So this is still a stack that's very easy to make low enough owned teams. You skip one of those top 3 guys and you've got a contrarian Orioles stack, or you can play those top 3 guys. That's perfectly fine and just, be different at pitcher. It's a little bit misleading saying that they're going over owned when, you can roster Ryan Mountcastle at 6% or Mateo at 5% or Hayes at 1% and be perfectly fine.
Yep. Absolutely. Josh Gillum says Farland is in the player. He's in the player pool in DraftKings. He's just not on Fantasy Country yet. So
we said he was 100. He's just not in Fantasy Country yet.
Okay. Can you rank the sides of this game for me?
Orioles 1, Wells 2, White Sox 3, Clevenger 4.
There it is. That's that homerism that I was saying that you need to incorporate here. All right. Anything else about this game?
No.
All right, next up we have the Red Sox against the Angels. Tanner Houck on the mound for the Sox. Patrick Sandoval for the Angels. What's your level of interest in these pitchers?
So Tanner Houck's really talented. Not getting to much, but at 6,500, I wouldn't mind sort of just betting on talent there. In his most recent starts, so he's gone 70 and 74 pitches, 5 innings in each. That's the downside for him is Boston isn't typically looking to get him very deep into games. He does have really good stuff though. So, at 6,500, like if you're somebody that is scared of playing Barrios, which I don't blame you at all, but you need pitchers in that price range, going to some Tanner Houck is another very reasonable way to go. He's pulling 7.5% ownership, 10% chance of being a top 2 value at 6,500. So no issues there. I'm just getting more Barrios for whatever reason. On the other side, we have Patrick Sandoval, who is a solid pitcher. Not the best matchup going up against the Red Sox, but 8,500 is a decent price tag. It's cool in Boston today. It looks like it's supposed to be around 60 degrees. So that's good for pitching as well. I do like the upside that Sandoval offers. I am not getting to him, but again, like if you're somebody that if he's getting no ownership, if you need a low owned pitcher and you want to go to Sandoval, like I would play Sandoval before I play Cal Quantrill at that price, for example.
Yeah, it's like Joe Ryan last night. Like we know he has the upside. It's a tough spot, but maybe he can shock us all. What about the bats on the other side? Like, are you going to be playing any? They're both fairly talented pitchers, but obviously both pretty good offenses as well. How much interest do you have in stacking up the Angels or the Red Sox? And do you think you'll get to them as one-offs?
I'm getting to a lot of Angels, which I really don't like because I think Tanner Houck is good, but they're not pulling a ton of ownership. As a stack, they're projected for 5%. They're 5th in top stack percentage as well at 5.5%. At any time you're getting to Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, obviously these guys are fine. So getting to a lot of the Angels. The field right now, Ohtani's projected for 18%. I would have more than that. Mike Trout's at 11%. I'd have more than that. And then everybody else falls off. So this is another team where, their aggregate ownership projection might be 5%, but If you're full stacking this team, you are being pretty contrarian. I'd be getting around 15% Ward, around 14% Renhefo, 9% Rendon, 7% Renfro, 5% O'Hoppe. Like all of these numbers are above where the field's coming in. So I'd be getting to quite a bit of the Angels. On the other side for Boston, getting a decent amount of them as well. Again, Sandoval's a good pitcher. I have plenty of respect for him, but you do just have talented hitters on the Red Sox. They are not projected for much ownership at 4% in the aggregate. Individually, you have Ref Snyder coming in at 11% at 2,400 on DraftKings. After that, the next highest owned hitters, Kike Hernandez at 5, Justin Turner at 4. So I'm getting over the field on both sides of this game, which it's just one of those spots where like I don't have reasons that I'm looking at it and saying like, oh yeah, I think the Angels do well here, or I think the Red Sox do well. It's more so just a spot where I think there's enough talent on both of these offenses that the ownership is just too low.
Yeah, you're not making any predictions other than the field is going to play them less than they probably should based on how often they're likely to do well. Can you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Angels, Red Sox, Angels, Red Sox, Houck, Sandoval based on price. Okay.
I forgot to warn you that there's a chance that I'm finally get my DK Onyx Apple stuff during the show. This is approximately when they apparently tried to drop it off yesterday, but didn't knock. They just put another slip, a misuse slip, next to the one that I had signed to allow them to release it. For some reason, they did not release it. So I put a big ass sign on my front door today saying, "Please knock if you show up." So maybe they'll actually knock today. We'll see if it actually works. But if you hear my dog going crazy within the next 20 minutes, it's probably what it is. All right. Next game here is, man, where are we? We are up to Atlanta at Kansas City, I believe. Yeah, that looks like we covered all the 6-10 games. We're up to the 7-10 games. Atlanta at Kansas City. Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves. Brady Singer for the Royals. Tell me about your level of interest in these pitchers.
Yeah, 2 more solid real life pitchers, not necessarily always the best DFS pitchers, but for Morton, pulling around 7, I'm getting around 7% ownership or exposure to him. We have him projected for 5% at 9,100. So nothing real crazy there. Brady Singer projected for 6%, 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So both guys pretty much just in line. The field, projected to do what they should. I am right around the field on Brady Singer. So we have Singer projected for 6.6% ownership, a 6.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. If the slate started right now, would have 6.7% Brady Singer. So seems like a lot of things are just lining up that he should be like 6 to 7% owned.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. I mean, tough spot against Atlanta, but some strikeouts in the lineup, I guess. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, talented pitcher, 24% strikeout percentage since last year, former first-round pick, 3.3 xFIP last year. He's somebody that I typically roster a lot.
Oh, I forgot about that. You did. Yeah. You were like playing the Royals constantly last year, both the pitchers and the bats, right?
I had a real problem with Kansas City last year. Yeah, because they always had so much MPE and speed with their hitters that I ended up playing them at low ownership. I played a good amount of Singer, but the guy that I played a ton of was Bubic, which was just awful.
Yeah.
Like Singer actually ended up being good, and it was like, damn, I wish I was playing more of him. Bubic was awful, and I just kept playing him at like $5,000. But yeah, Brady Singer's a good pitcher. It's just clearly a dangerous matchup against Atlanta as well.
Yep. Okay. And then what about the other side of the game? How about the bats? Any interest in playing Atlanta against Singer? Any interest in playing the Royals against Charlie Morton? What's your level of interest?
So Atlanta's coming in with the 3rd highest top stack percentage. They're pulling 8% aggregate ownership. 5.8 stack score is 3rd highest on the slate as well, behind the Mets and the Guardians. So yeah, if you're getting to Atlanta, fine. It's a good pitcher in Singer, but that's not necessarily always super important. It's a really high upside offense for the Braves as well. I'd be getting a little bit below the field, but again, if you're getting to more Atlanta, that's perfectly fine. As far as Kansas City goes, getting to a good amount of Bobby Witt, getting to a good amount of Perez, Pasquantino, Melendez showing up a bit as well. You do have speed in the Kansas City lineup, so that gives you some upside. Morton, of course, a good pitcher as well. Not a great park for hitting either. 138 expected ISO to righties since last year for Morton. Has had more issues with left-handed power, allowing a 186 expected ISO, but you don't have a ton of left-handed power on Kansas City. You have Melendez, you have Pasquantino. That's about it from the left side. But those guys at the top, Witt, Perez, Pasquantino, Melendez, I do like getting to them.
Okay. Can you rank the 4 sides of the game for me?
This one's like super close. So in terms of the exposures that I would have right now, it's Kansas City bats, Morton and Singer are the same, and then Atlanta bats. But like all four of these to me are like the same thing. It's two good pitchers facing decent to good offenses. Ownership, I think, is going to kind of just push a lot here.
Okay. All right, let's do one more game before the next read. We have Texas and Houston. Martin Perez on the mound for Texas. Luis Garcia for the Astros. Tell me what your level of interest in the pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, Garcia right now projected to be the highest owned pitcher on DraftKings. I'd be getting around 21%, which is less than the 33% he's getting, but still getting, he'd still be one of my most popular pitchers, just not quite to the level of the field, similar like we talked about with Cortez. On the other side, you have Martin Perez, who has a really tough matchup against the Astros and is just not a good strikeout pitcher anyway. He seems like he'd be one of the lowest owned guys on the slate, but he's actually pulling 9% ownership at 6,800. That kind of surprises me. I would be getting like 4%. It's kind of surprising that he's getting he's getting 9% when you have like Tyler Wells getting less, Tanner Houck's actually getting a little bit less. I don't totally understand that one. He is good at getting ground balls, but it's not like Houston strikes out a ton, and Perez himself doesn't typically get them either. So not entirely sure why he's getting as much ownership as he is.
Is it the price tag? But there are other pitchers.
But you have other guys in that range too.
Yeah, interesting. Well, with that said, does that make you any more interested in the Astros? Let's get to the bats. I think you said yesterday that it's not a big factor in your process. I don't remember one of the shows you were on. You're saying that like the added leverage of facing a pitcher who's getting too much ownership is not a huge factor for you. But does it make you at least a little bit more interested in playing the Astros?
It makes me happier when I get there. It's not something that I really like build into my lineups, because I think it is at least somewhat accounted for in ownership percentage, just in that, like, if Perez, the more ownership Perez pulls, the less likely people are going to Houston. But I would be getting over the field here, not going crazy on anything, but the highest ownership projection we have for a hitter on Houston right now is Chas McCormick at 6%. Then it's Bregman at 3%, Abreu at 2%. Looking at where I'd be getting around 9% on Bregman, 8% McCormick, and then around 5% on, Yordan Alvarez, Tucker, Pena, Abreu, all these guys that are clearly good hitters. Martin Perez is a good enough pitcher at limiting power. Since the start of last season, just a 109 expected ISO to righties, 21.3% strikeout percentage. So you definitely need him on a bad day. Like if he's on, he's just going to have you pounding balls into the ground. And clearly that's not what you're looking for in DFS. But anytime the Astros are going to be low owned, they're going to be an appealing stack.
Burt Bondy says Garcia having trouble adjusting the pitch clock without his rockabye bullshit windup. That's one of those things that's like you really can't quantify it, but that is, if you think that it's true that a pitcher is struggling because of a change of rules, I think that's something that you could factor in if you want to. But is that something that you would factor in enough that you have interest in the Rangers?
No. I agree that like you can't quantify it. Maybe it does end up being a thing. I think that I think there's still a much better chance that Luis Garcia has just had 2 mediocre starts and that it has nothing to do with anything else.
Right. He'll probably adjust to the pitch clock. But yeah, as Bert was saying, hard pass to chalk. He's not really chalk. Luis Garcia is still like 13 or sorry, Luis
33.
33. Oh, you're right. Yeah. I was looking at top 2 odds. Yeah, that is pretty chalky. Okay. I take it back. That is he is fairly chalky. Anything else that you want to say other than we should rank these teams?
Really low probability spot for Texas. Obviously, if you want to play the leverage angle, they do have good hitters that can take advantage of Garcia. Unfortunately, Seager is out. I'd be getting 2 to 5% of these guys, so I guess technically over the field, but not going crazy there. In terms of ranking them, Garcia 1, Houston bats 2. I think Texas 3, Perez 4. I guess you could flip those two. The field certainly is.
Mavs got fined $750,000 for tanking. How do you feel about that? That the Mavs got fined $750,000? I think it's funny in like several different ways.
I think it's just one, like what they did was just blatantly egregious. But
was it any more egregious than like every other? Like there were so many tanking teams that were just like, yeah, we're sitting like the Blazers. Like, yeah, we're gonna pull all of our starters, and if our backups are doing too well, we're gonna pull them too.
Right. It was only more egregious because they didn't start it earlier. Like the other teams just made sure they didn't have a chance at being the 10 seed.
Yeah.
The Mavs didn't. And then when they, kind of did, they're like, no, we're just pulling the plug here. So yeah, 750K like is nothing.
Do you think it's also like because they're dealing with superstars? Like a lot of teams, like they pull this start. Like I mean, the Blazers have Dame Lillard, but like he's not on the same level as Luka. Do you think that's part of it? That like people are paying to see Luka, and now we're pulling Luka out of games.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. I think it's mostly that they actually had a chance of making the 10th seed. And yeah, Josh Gell did it so they could keep their first round pick. Absolutely. Like it was the right decision. When they did it, they had like a 20% chance of making the play-in game. It was the right decision to just make sure they keep their first round pick, but
Right.
it just came off as so much worse than usual because you have a team with a 20% chance of getting into the
Right.
play-in game, not technically the playoffs, but the play-in game. And they're just like, nah, we'd rather lose.
Right. Yeah. We'd rather have the pick, which I agree. It's totally the smart move. Yeah, I think that's well put. That it's just the timing of it rather than starting earlier. They waited until they were right on the verge of making the play in,
Right.
which like the NBA wants teams obviously to be excited to try to like get to the play and get to the playoffs. So to tank in
Right.
that spot.
And then you also had it like the juxtaposition of like right before they shut everyone down, Luka's like, nah, if we have a chance of making the play-in game, I'm playing. Like,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And
That's
then the Mavs are like, yeah, by the way, no, you're not.
yeah, I forgot about that. That Luka was like, I'm gonna play all out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is pretty funny. And yeah, the 750,000 is particularly funny because like Mark Cuban as the owner, like does not give a shit about
Right.
$750,000.
And Arcatel's a sort of, he said, didn't they do it in the middle of a game? Sort of. So what they did was they announced every relevant player out before the game except for Luka. And they said Luka was going to play one quarter and then not because it was a home game. It was like Slovenia night. So they let Luka play the entire first quarter. Then they took him out. But then what they also did was at halftime, they benched. So like you still had like Jaden Hardy. You had, I don't remember who else. But at halftime, they benched basically anybody that was even in their second unit regularly.
That's right.
Then also got benched and they brought in their third unit.
That was it didn't affect me that much because I had already like missed the Bucks starting lineup and played a lot of Bobby Portis. I think that was the same night. But yeah, I played a lot of Jaden Hardy that night too. Was not anticipating that they were going to pull out Jaden Hardy. I thought he would make the cut as a player they could play while tanking, but apparently wrong there. All right, we can move on to the next game. But first, I should tell you guys about our sponsor, SoRare, which again we've been doing SoRare NBA. I've been playing every week. Now we have SoRare MLB. It's a little bit different in that it's not super flex like NBA where it's positionless. There are positions in SoRare MLB, but it's a game similar to like DraftKings Rainmakers if you're familiar, where you buy the cards and they're collectibles on SoRare, but you can also enter them in competitions and it's in perpetuity. So like every week, every new competition that they have, you can play your card over. It's also kind of fun if you're not a 150 maxer. If you like single entry, every SoRare contest is single entry. Everybody can just have one lineup per contest. You can only use your cards in one competition. So you can enter multiple different contests with single entries, but each card you have can only be used in one. I think it's a really fun format, really fun game. And honestly, I was saying during NBA season, I think like if you want to have like the best roster that you can possibly make for every competition, I think the investment is probably like $1,500 at the beginning of the season because you can sell and buy new cards as you go. That was kind of my approach. Like for each new slate, I would maybe sell a card, buy a different card that's going to fit into my lineup for the week. But I think it's really fun. It's not a huge investment to sustain you for literally the entire season. So highly recommend joining SoRare. These are, of course, cards that are kept on the Ethereum blockchain. Really cool. And these for NBA, it's one of 5,000. So if the deal that we have is if you buy 5 cards on the market, so typically you can buy limited rare cards, super rare if you really want to, on the market. If you buy 5 of those cards, you will get a 6th card for free, and that 6th card that you get for free is random. So you could get a superstar after you buy 5 cards on the market. Really cool deal if you use the link in the description of this video when you sign up for SoRare MLB. I think it's going to be a really fun product. And the first competition is tonight. So maybe they've already had some. The first competition that we're going to be a part of is tonight. So I'm looking into joining some of those limited contests tonight. And you can also play for free. You don't even need to make purchases on SoRare. Just go to the site, sign up, and you get 20 free cards. And you actually, for the MLB product, you get to pick out your cards. For NBA, you just got 20 random cards. You can actually pick out cards and make a contest, make a team for this week for free for tonight. So check it out when you've got a chance. SoRare MLB, and you can use the link in our description if you want to get a card for free on the market. Number 2, 5,000 tracked on the Ethereum blockchain. All right, Adam, we will move on to the next game, which is, where are we? We are at St. Louis and Pittsburgh. Looks like St. Louis and Pittsburgh. Yep. We've got Jake Woodford on the mound for St. Louis, Johan Oviedo for the Pirates. Tell me about your level of interest in either of these pitchers.
close to non-existent. Woodford showing up like 8% for me. It is a good matchup against Pittsburgh. Oviedo showing up basically not at all. Very difficult matchup against the Cardinals. So Woodford's not a great strikeout pitcher, but he is cheap. He is facing the Pirates. Since last year, just a 12.8% strikeout percentage, 4.18 xFIP. Certainly not anybody that you're expecting to go out there and rack up fantasy points, but again, pitching just leaves a lot to be desired on this slate. So there's going to be some lineups where just saving that money, getting down to Woodford makes some sense. We have him projected for 7% ownership, 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 25% chance of being a top 2 value. Again, that doesn't mean the same thing in baseball as it does in basketball. Like in basketball, because scoring is not event based, it's just more constant. You end up needing like the best point per dollar value plays, whereas in baseball, like you're gonna just end up needing raw points at pitcher still, because you're gonna have some cheap hitters hit home runs, and you're gonna get I guess better point per dollar value. There is what I'm trying to say. So he's a good value. He's in a good spot. He's not a great strikeout pitcher, but at 5K, sure, I'll get a little bit. Oviedo going up against the Cardinals is a pretty hard pass.
Yeah, I'm looking at Michael Wynn sent us a super chat, says Michael Waka's prize picks pick looks like Josh. And I'm looking at it, it's very small. I can totally see it. Let me see if I can, the picture on my phone. I don't know how to make the picture on my phone bigger, and I can't share my screen right now. I probably could. I could probably figure that out, but I'm currently don't know how. So I'm going to, now just look up your Michael Waka picture on, let's see if I can, wait. This is not working. This is why I need a real producer. The real producer would be like, don't even try that. It's not going to work. I'm sitting here trying to show people my phone. Check out the Michael Walker picture on Prize Picks if you have a minute. It does look a bit like Josh. I kind of see the shit-eating grin, the Josh shit-eating grin is kind of going on there. Yeah, it looks a bit like Josh. All right. What about the other side of this game? So not a ton of interest. Zero interest in Oviedo. You could get to some Woodford. What about the bats in this game? Obviously, St. Louis, one of those stacks that you can get to. They have a 5 implied team total. Pittsburgh at a 4 implied team total. What's your level of interest in either stacking or playing one-offs from this game?
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis looks good here going up against Oviedo. In the top stacks tool, we have them kind of middle of the pack. We have them 7th in top stack percentage at 5%, 2.6 stack score because they are expensive. But as a result, they're also not getting much ownership at just 2%. So individually looking at their hitters, you have Wilson Contreras at the top at 6% owned, Goldie at 2, O'Neill at 2, Gorman, Arenado at 2. This is a team where I'd be looking to get over the field. They are showing up for me in the like 5 to 10% range. So I like getting over the field there. Not going too crazy with them. They are expensive, but you don't need to get too much to be overweight against Oviedo. Pretty decent spot to get to. On the other side for the Pirates, not really looking to get to them against Woodford. Does a good job limiting power. The Pirates also just aren't very good. I assume we get Brian Reynolds back today, but he's also really expensive. So to me, it's Cardinals bats, Jake Woodford, Pirates bats, Oviedo.
Okay. That's yeah, that seems right. That seems like probably the same order that I would have it as well. I was distracted a little bit because I was Josh Gillum says Josh looks like a sober Big Ben. What do you think about that?
I can see it.
I don't know if I can really see. I don't really see Josh looking like Big Ben, but maybe I haven't looked at Big Ben enough. I've seen plenty of Josh. I've watched enough of these shows that I've seen plenty of Josh, but that doesn't immediately stand out to me. But yeah, I agree with Mike. Sober Big Ben is a good fantasy name. That's funny. All right. So you already ranked him. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
All right, I guess we're getting close to the hour already, so we've still got a few games left. All right, San Diego at Milwaukee. Michael Wacha on the mound for San Diego. Eric Lauer on the mound for Milwaukee. What's your level of interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, getting a decent amount of Wacha right around the field on him. Getting 22%. He's projected for, I think, 22%. 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but does offer a bit more value than like Nestor Cortez, for example. He's getting less ownership than Luis Garcia. So getting right around the field on him. Not a great pitcher by any stretch, but there's not a ton of great pitching on this slate, and a lot of the good pitchers are pretty expensive too. So Wacha coming in at 20%, 3.99 xFIP since the start of last year. 23.7% strikeout percentage against lefties, 18.5% against righties. Milwaukee's projected lineup, pretty balanced, 5 lefties, 4 righties. So nothing too crazy there. Bottom of the order, not the most intimidating. Top of the order obviously has good hitters. You also have pretty cool weather in San Diego, so pretty favorable pitching conditions in a park that favors pitching. 3.7 implied run total for the Brewers. It just sets up as a pretty good spot for Wacha, even though he's not a great pitcher. On the other side for Eric Lauer, a very dangerous matchup for him going up against the Padres. We know this is a loaded lineup. Lauer has, had plenty of success at times. I'm getting around 7% of him at 8,400. He's projected for no ownership. So, it's a spot where I'm getting over the field, but still not going crazy. We have him with a 7.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So pretty happy with my 7% Eric Lauer.
Yeah, that seems nice. What about the bats on the other side of the game?
Padres always are an interesting stack just because of the upside they offer. Getting to Soto and Machado the most, right around 10%, not really getting to much of anything else against Lauer. As far as the Milwaukee bats go, they are interesting since Wacha is pulling 20% ownership and he's just, a pretty average pitcher. But just kind of getting 5 to 6% on most of the Milwaukee bats. Looking at the top stacks tool, Milwaukee is they're 5th from the bottom, 3% chance of being the top stack, 2% projected ownership. San Diego is middle of the pack, 4.5% top stack percentage, 4.5% ownership. So just kind of 2 pretty neutral spots.
And then what rank them for me? 4 sides of the game.
Wacha 1, either Padres or Lauer 2, and then the other one 3, and then Brewers 4.
Okay. Sportsbook says Josh almost had a big night yesterday. Shout out to him. I missed that. I didn't realize that.
He was in first in the big DraftKings lineup or big DraftKings tournament for a while. He ended up 5th.
Oh man, that's still. I mean, that's brutal. There's no silver lining there.
No.
It's nice to be 5th, but that's a big drop off in payout. He'll get there again. He just had the big 80,000. I'm sure he'll win another one soon.
Yeah, and he had a chance at a big MMA night again the other night and ran.
Oh, did he really?
Bad. Yeah, he going into the last 2 fights, basically there was one run out where it was bad for him, and then any of the other iterations were good to great, and he got the bad one.
Well, that's shitty. Yeah, but he just had that 80. I mean, you're gonna have some of those bad breaks on your way too. I'm sure he'll win another 100,000 soon. Yeah, we can't always do. That's exactly right. All right. Next up, we have the A's and the Mets. Kodai Senga on the mound for the Mets. James Caprillion for the A's. What's your level of interest in these pitchers?
Very interested in Senga when you can get there. He is 10-4 on DraftKings, so he's the most expensive pitcher. He's $900 more than Cortez. He's $2,300 more than Wacha. He's $1,800? Yeah, $1,800 more than Garcia. So the price is a little bit of a problem, but he's pulling 21% ownership. 17% chance of being the top 2 pitcher is the highest on the slate. I'm getting around 14% right now. Good matchup against Oakland. Good park to pitch in. Certainly looks very good to me. As far as Caprillion goes, this guy sucks, and he has a tough matchup against the Mets as well. So this is very much a guy that I can't tell you to roster. I would have 11% if the slate started right now. Very risky, not a good pitcher. It's purely just an ownership and salary play.
Coming in at 3% ownership with a 17% chance of being the top 2 value on the slate, 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. Yeah, I guess it makes sense that your program would get you some of that.
Yeah, I get why I'm getting to him.
Yeah,
but
you don't love it.
I also can't recommend anybody else do it.
Yeah, that's great thing to say when you're a tout. This is what I'm doing, but you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I say that too much too. What about the bats on the other side? Any interest in the A's or the Mets?
Certainly interested in the Mets. I'm not sure that my spreadsheet is, but anytime you can get, I'm not getting to Mets hitters, but anytime you can get bats against James Caprillion, it is a pretty appealing thing to do. He has the park working in his favor. That's about it. 19.5% strikeout percentage against righties since last year, 15.5% to lefties, 176 expected ISO to lefties, 173 to righties. Just not a very good pitcher, and he's going up against a very quality Mets lineup. So if you can get there, great. Again, the park and the weather really the only thing working against him. The A's are a very difficult team to get to. Tough matchup with Senga, and then also just a lack of major league level hitters in their lineup.
And then can you rank the 4 sides?
In terms of what I would like, it's Senga, Mets, Caprillion, A's, I guess. In terms of what I have right now, it's Senga, Caprillion, Mets, A's.
Interesting. Well, again, plenty of time if you decide. Do you go in like when you see things that you don't like you say like I want this, but this is what it's giving me? Are you gonna? I guess you're not playing, but if you were playing, would you go in and like change it? Would you try to make it happen to get it to be more in line with what you want, or do you just trust your program?
I just trust it. I double check to make sure that like I didn't paste something wrong or like something's projected clearly wrong. But other than that, I trust it.
Yeah. Yeah, SMP says that was Adam's Bubich line all year last year. I'm getting him. You probably shouldn't. So It seems like it's a good line though. People should take that advice and don't do what you're doing there.
Yeah,
same as Bubich.
Yeah, I am randomly playing 10% of this god awful pitcher. There's no like analysis for why James Caprillion would be a good play here, other than he's cheap, he's low owned, and I don't like a lot of the other popular pitching anyway. So
right,
let's try and get lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And then let's move on to, we've got two more games to get through. Dodgers at Cubs first. Noah Syndergaard on the mound for the Dodgers. Justin Steele for the Cubs. What's your level of interest in these pitchers?
Man, Noah Syndergaard's been like my kryptonite forever. Like when he was good, I just would never play him and he'd always do well. Getting to around 10% of him here. On the other side, Justin Steele, a pretty solid arm for the Cubs, but obviously a brutal matchup. Only getting to around 1% of him. The field is projected to have about 11% Syndergaard. So I'm actually in line with the field for once on Syndergaard, which doesn't happen very often. Justin Steele projected for 3% ownership. Another guy that's going under-owned, but still just a 9% chance of being a top two pitcher. Brutal matchup against the Dodgers. Certainly not going out of my way to get to him, even though I do think he's good.
Okay. Eric Sherman, is this membership worth it? I'm happy to pay the monthly fee, but I'm concerned with ROI. Yeah, obviously I'm biased, but I've had a lot of success using like even hand building. Somebody earlier was saying like, I don't know how you do it without optimizers. I've had success in the past. This is actually, MLB is probably my best sport for like single entry, just hand building lineups using the top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool. I think that it's an incredible tool, just an easy way to find leverage in your stacks to see like odds of success. Okay, do I need to get contrarian somewhere else? I think it's very fun to hand build using the tools. So I highly recommend it, even without Fantasy Cruncher. I think that there is a ton of value in the tools here, particularly the top pitchers and top stacks tool. But then we do have a new top batters tool this year as well. So my biased opinion is yes, very much worth it. Where do we leave off, Adam? You got through the pitchers, Syndergaard and Justin Steele. How about the bats on the other side of it?
So Dodgers coming in 4.5% chance of being the top stack, 3% projected ownership, 2.9 stack score, relatively low because they're expensive as well. As Steve said, play Dodgers stack every day. They're just one of those teams like the Astros where I'm always happy to get to them when they're low owned, and I'd actually be getting a lot right now. So I'd be around 15% on Mookie, 15% on Smith, 14 on Vargas, like 9% JD Martinez, 7% on Muncy and Taylor, 6% on Freeman. So this is a team where this is one of the teams where I would actually be pretty heavily over the field. It looks like this is kind of answering my question earlier. There was one or two teams earlier where like Tampa Bay, I said I was surprised I wasn't getting more. I think this is kind of answering that, where I'm just getting a lot of the Dodgers. They're showing up as one of, my highest owned contrarian teams. And it's not anything, bad about Justin Steele. He's, I think, a good pitcher. Since the start of last year, 23% strikeout percentage against righties, 30% against lefties, 100 expected ISO to righties is excellent. Sub 100 expected ISO to lefties is obviously even better. But when the Dodgers go off, they just have so much upside because of the power. It's something that I think you and I had talked about the other day. If not, it was me and Lofty. But I try and think of it in terms of like, obviously any offense can have a good game any given day, but I try and think about it a little bit in terms of like, what does a good offensive day look like for this team? And for a team like the Dodgers, it is just home run after home run after home run, where as you talk about a team like the A's, and it's typically going to be like seeing eye single, double to the gap, another single, maybe a walk. Like they just don't have the power to put together, home run after home run after home run like the Dodgers do. And so if Justin Steele's on top of his game, the Dodgers aren't going to have a good game. Hitting's really hard, and Steele's likely to win out. But when that opposing pitcher is having, because like no matter how good you are as a pitcher, you're going to have at least a couple of starts a year where you just don't have your best stuff. When the opposing pitcher doesn't have their best stuff against the Dodgers, they are just going to get lit up. Whereas, you get that same pitcher having the same kind of C stuff against the A's, and yeah, maybe they're giving up like 3 runs or something. So anytime the Dodgers are low owned, pretty much as long as they're not facing like, the best of the best, they're going to be a good low owned stack.
And the Cubs, like so I Noah Syndergaard, historically not great at holding runners. Do you think with all of the new changes to the rules and particularly not being able to check first base, like do you factor that in at all? Like trying to get to more of the Cubs? I've said on some shows that early on in the season, I've been trying to like play more bats against ground ball pitchers if the team is going to be super low, and just like as like a tiny little like extra boost to teams, just because all of the rules favor base runners, but in particular, players who can steal some bases get a little bit of a bonus from these rules with the bigger bases, not being able to check first base with the pitcher who already struggles holding runners. Is that a factor for you at all? Like, do you have interest in playing the Cubs, and do you care about that? Is that a factor at all? Is that just, maybe an extra hope for a little bonus, but you don't really factor it in?
Yeah, so it's kind of like all the above. I haven't figured out exactly how to factor it in, but I do think it's like something worth thinking about, especially if you're somebody playing, one or two or three lineups or something, and you can actually look, at each lineup and make decisions. If like, especially in tiebreaker situations, stolen bases are actually like easier to predict than home runs, in that if somebody gets on base and there's nobody ahead of them, like they're just going to run, a lot of these guys like Mateo, for example. And then now you are going, or you should have teams being more aggressive, at the very least with their guys that already were stealing bases. They should be running more often. And then you should see those sort of like middle of the road base stealers running more often as well, as teams get more aggressive. But it definitely, I haven't figured out exactly like how to account for it, other than like in projections, stolen base projections just should be higher, which is going to naturally drive up the projections for stolen base guys. But it certainly makes me happy when like I look and see that I'd be getting 14% Swanson, 13% Nico Horner. Like these guys are both going to run if they get on base. Cody Bellinger is still pretty inexpensive. I'd be getting to about 13% of him. And then, Wisdom, Gomes, Happ, Mancini are all showing up a bit as well. So I'm actually getting to a lot of this game offensively.
Okay. Well, rank the sides for me.
In terms of, I guess, exposure for me, Dodgers bats 1, Cubs bats 2, Syndergaard 3, Steele 4.
Okay, but you still, I think that I don't know if you said this exactly, but it sounded like you don't think that Steele is a horrible play even against the Dodgers. Do you think that he's still a fine player? Or do you think that it's too risky here?
I mean, it's not a play I would make. I think he's one of those like plays that's technically going under owned, but it's just not one of the ones that I would end up playing. We have him with a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at 3% owned. So if you want to use him as a contrarian play, like the math backs up that he's fine. But I just think that there's like better spots to get to.
Yeah, it's tough. That's something that I might get to a little bit more if I were actually probably if I'm using optimizer, I'm a little bit more likely to get there than hand building. But yeah, looks good in the tools. Yeah, I guess he is. There's nobody cheaper than him who ranks better in terms of top 2 pitcher odds. So if you have 7,900 left over, that's probably where I'd be going. But
yeah, I mean, like if the slate started right now on DraftKings, I would have 1%.
Yeah, it's a tough ask. Anytime you're facing the Dodgers and you're not like the most elite pitcher, that's a very tough ask. Okay, well, we've only got one more game on the slate, Seattle versus Colorado, and it's in Seattle. So you get the Rockies outside of Coors here for Marco Gonzalez, Austin Gomber on the mound for the Rockies. What's your level of interest in Gonzalez or Gomber?
So Gonzalez is showing up about 20% for me. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher, but he does get a good matchup here. You're getting, a favorable pitcher's park in Seattle. You're getting a really, really shitty Colorado offense. Marco Gonzalez is a pitcher, if you stacked against him in the past, you're aware that when he's on, he gets a decent amount of called strikes, has really good command, gets a lot of infield fly balls. But the thing that just kind of stands out here is that he's only getting 6% ownership, 7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but also a 6% chance of being a top 2 value. So he's projected to go a little bit under owned here. And again, I just don't like a lot of the pitchers that are getting ownership. So he's somebody that's showing up a good amount for me, getting around 20%. Basically the same as I'm getting on Barrios. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher. Since the start of last year, only a 13% strikeout percentage, has allowed 1.5 home runs per 9. Also, just not a particularly good pitcher at all. But Colorado is also just a really bad offense, and I'm willing to take my chances here on a slate where I don't really love any of the popular pitching.
Okay. And then what about the bats on are you playing any Colorado in Seattle? Or are you playing any Seattle against Austin Gomber? What's your level of interest in stacks or one-offs from this game?
Not getting to much Seattle. Julio Rodriguez, an exception. Like clearly he's always going to be a good play. I'm also getting to Austin Gomber, by the way. I didn't mention that, but getting 17% of him at 5,800. This is, again, just a pitcher's park. I think it's a decent pitcher in Gomber. He's projected for 14% ownership. We have him going quite a bit over owned, but I think that's just a value piece because we have him with a 14% chance of being a top 2 value. So I'm pretty much in line with the field there. Not getting to a lot of Seattle bats again outside of Julio Rodriguez. 196 expected ISO to righties since last year for Gomber. 126 expected ISO to lefties. You do get him outside of course field, which is nice. On the other side, Marco Gonzalez, 163 expected ISO to lefties, 167 to righties. I wouldn't mind getting to some Chris Bryant, CJ Cron. Right now, I'm not getting to anything from Colorado outside of Gomber, but if I were to get there, I think Cron and Bryant are where you start.
Okay. And did you say you do have just a little bit of Seattle bats?
Yeah, I mean, I have like 10% Julio Rodriguez and then like negligible amounts of the rest.
And then this is the final game. Can you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Gonzalez. So in tournaments, Gonzalez, because of the lack of ownership, from a value standpoint, Gomber. But either pitcher, number 1, Seattle bats 3, Rockies bats 4.
Okay. And then we did get that tiers question. I mean, we're a little bit over time. There's no hard out here. Have you looked at tiers at all? Do you think we could do that quickly?
I can pull it up quickly.
Let me pull it up too.
Lineup, baseball, tiers, 705. All right, so tier 1 is Acuna, Alvarez, Devers, and Judge. A coin. Probably would go Judge. Yeah, I would go Judge tier 1.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a strong take there. I'll go with Judge too. What about tier 2? Wander Franco, Brian Reynolds, Randy Arozarena, Paul Goldschmidt, Shohei Ohtani.
I mean, I think it's Ohtani.
Yeah, Ohtani gets the split with Hawk. Seems like the obvious one there.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like the other guys are good, but Ohtani's Ohtani.
Jose Ramirez in tier 3.
Let's go there.
Mike Trout is there too. Weird. Okay, tier 3 looks.
Yeah, tier 3.
Vlad Guerrero. What is going on here? Kyle Tucker, Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Mike Trout, Jose Ramirez. This feels like it should be tier 1. Nolan Arenado. Do you think it is Jose Ramirez there still?
I think it's Jose Ramirez. Yeah,
I think it is too. But that's a really strong tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the immediate inclination was to click Mike Trout, but given the matchup, I think it's Ramirez.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Tier 4. Luis Robert, Matt Olson, Cedric Mullins, Austin Riley, Bobby Witt, George Springer.
This is a tough one. My immediate thought was either Mullins or Witt. I think you can make a Buxton case also. We have Mullins.
Oh, Buxton there too. I didn't even. Okay.
We have Mullins at 9.8 DraftKings. We have Buxton at 9.3. Witt 8.9. Yeah, I think I'm going Mullins here.
Okay. Lean into the homerism a little bit.
Yeah, stolen bases too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tier 5, we have Matt Chapman, who is day-to-day, Yandy Diaz, Adley Rutschman, Hunter Renfroe, Taylor Ward, Giancarlo Stanton. Oh, there's a lot here. Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien.
I think it's Rutschman.
Yeah, just lean into the homerism. I like this. Just to go. I think I agree with you though on both of those. So it's. I mean, we do have Giancarlo Stanton looks good, but yeah. We'll go with Rutschman, and then tier 6, Ryan Mountcastle, Gleyber Torres, Jeremy Pena, I think, Alex Verdugo, Alex Bregman, Brendan Donovan, Carlos Correa, Sal Perez. Who do you like here?
Bregman.
Okay. And then do we want to do a dong pick? Do you have any dong picks lined up?
Yeah.
We both crushed it on the last show that we did together.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, me and Lofty didn't do it yesterday, but I probably would have had Rizzo too when he homered. I mean, Jose Ramirez is so obvious, but
yeah,
I won't take that one. Is Brandon Lau too obvious?
No.
Okay, I'll go Brandon Lau.
I was thinking about Shohei Ohtani, and then I thought that's probably too obvious.
Yeah.
I'll go all the way down to, you know what? I'm going to go with Byron Buxton.
All right. Yeah,
I don't think it's that obvious. All right. That'll do it for this show. We went a little bit over. Thank you. Sorry, Adam. Do you have any final words?
This slate just looks like a wide open tournament slate, which is fun in baseball, but it's going to make you probably have some uncomfortable plays.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very uncomfortable. So we're going to make some ugly lineups here. All right. Well, Thanks, Adam. Thank you guys for watching. Please do, if you have not yet, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. I'll be back in 10 minutes doing a show with Eric on Underdog. So check that out as well. And then, of course, I think Adam and I will both be on shows for NBA. Adam will be on Deeper Dive. I'll be on Live Before Lock. Come back for that. Also, High Stakes coming out this afternoon with Terry McBride. So check that out as well. Tons of stuff on our channels to check out today. So make sure you do that. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching and good luck tonight.